This is Lynn Brunet from lynnbrunet.com and host of Find Your Groove. Welcome to another fabulous Friday. And this is your lucky day because I have one of the best guests ever, Faydra Koenig. She is America's crisis coach. And let me tell you, if you're going through a crisis, if you feel like this is pretty much it, life has pulled the rug out from under you, you're done, life sucks, there's no point in going on, you're going to want to stick around and listen because my guest today has come out of the fire. She's an Amazon best-selling author. She's a podcaster, and I suggest you go listen to her podcast. I'll give you the deets on that later, how you can do that. She's a lover of iced tea and snarky banter. And I happen to know Starbucks, too. She's determined to shake people up about their mediocrity and stop living a half life that is killing your spirit. She's known, as I mentioned, in pop culture as America's crisis coach. She shares stories of triumph and hope that make a lasting impact on people moving through their own crisis. You can find out more about Faydra at doinglifewithfaydra.com. You can also find her books at Faydra on Amazon.com and catch her podcast Coming Out of the Fire on iTunes, and it is also on her website at doinglifewithfaydra.com. Hey, Faydra girl.
Hey, girl, how are you?
Oh, fabulous, because it's Friday and Shark Tank's on later, and
oh, man.
It's always a great day. Do you watch Shark Tank?
I do. I wish we could Skype and watch it at the same time because we could have a really good time watching it together.
Do you always guess at the beginning when they do their little pitch and you go, oh, yeah, no one's going to buy that?
It's not going to happen. Yes, for sure.
I love that show.
Forecasting
It's so
people's doom.
I know. Isn't that terrible?
Who's
your favorite shark?
Oh, my gosh. I don't have a favorite because I like them all for different reasons.
Yeah, I get that.
You know, they're like a symphony. Sometimes you hear the piano, sometimes you hear the trumpet, sometimes you hear the violin. So I don't have a favorite. What about you?
I'm a little partial to, I'm like you. I like them all for different reasons. Mm-hmm. But I got to say maybe my top, I love Mr. Wonderful. Because sometimes just the way he comes out with his things, his words, his phrases are too funny. And Damon, I don't know, he's sharp. He's a sharp-dressed man. I like a sharp-dressed man.
I do too. I absolutely do too.
I know. Love it. So I'm so glad that you're with me today, that we're hanging today. For those of you listening, I had the awesome opportunity to be on Faydra's podcast not that long ago, Coming Out of the Fire. She, fantastic host. You're rocking it with that. And congratulations on the success of it because it's something that's really needed and it speaks volumes to you as a host and what you offer to people.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you and I are girlfriends, so it made it easy to have you on the show. And that really was the premise in the beginning, was just having all my friends on the show because I've met so many amazing people. And, when you're new behind the mic, I'm not new to interviewing because I've been doing that, I feel like, for 22 years in my work space. Yeah. But when I was going on air and pushing buttons and doing different things and having some of those nerves, it just made it easier to have these amazing people that I knew who had been through their own situations on the show. So it's been super fun. I'm super blessed. The success I didn't expect. I underestimated the enthusiasm people would have for the show and to be on the show. So I'm humbly, humbly happy.
Yeah, well, you deserve it. Crisis is just huge. Everybody's gone through something, and it's amazing that sometimes amazing some of the stories I hear. I think, oh my God, how did you survive? And when I connected with you online and heard about you, and we're in some groups together on Facebook, and I watched your video on your website, and I thought, holy shit, I can't believe that this
Now
this
that I know
woman,
we can cuss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ooh, okay. Now I can really be.
I just thought, oh, my God, I can't believe from the age of 3 just what you've gone through and to see the result of this life that you've created, that you love, that you, and not to say that you didn't have a rough time going through it and that the emotions weren't difficult, and getting to that edge of thinking, oh my God, if I could just like check out of life, I think that might be the best answer. But that didn't happen for you. And it just amazes me that, and not being in that situation. I mean, we've all had our own struggles, but yours are definitely something that I couldn't imagine or even say, oh, I know how you feel or whatever. So maybe just fill the listeners in a little bit on what happens from the age of 3 onward.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I will give the Reader's Digest version, and I will do a little disclaimer because on paper, I just sound like a total train wreck, and it breaks my heart because I know that life is meant to be positive and meant to be happy. And I think that depending on where you come from in your spirituality, or if you're law of attraction or whatever, there's a higher power, a higher reason, a higher whatever that helps make it have meaning. So for me, what I've come to discover is that I believe I was here, or I am here, to be a bit of a warrior. And I didn't say worrier, I said warrior. So going back to my lifespan, I'm 47, just had a birthday about a week ago. And it did start when I was 3. My mother married somebody who had been in the Vietnam War situation, and he had seen a lot of really nasty stuff, and he came home and he brought that pain with him, and he transferred that onto the family. And so from the time I was 3 until I was 13, I was being systematically tortured, and that was either physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. And it was that kind of weird stuff where you're kept away from society and you're denied just the common human basic needs. So I had this really kind of weird dysfunction in society. I didn't know how to get my needs met without manipulating. And that wasn't because I was taught bad things. I was basically just left on my own to figure it out. So I came out of that, the other side. Oddly enough, I've never had any like sexual dysfunction, but I definitely had issues with people in authority. So I moved out on my own when I was 17, and I've lived on my own since then and put myself through college. I got married very young the first time, and sadly, my first husband became mentally ill, and it was something that had run through his family, but nobody talked about it. So I certainly didn't know what mental illness was at the time. And so by the time I was in my young 20s, I was already a single mom with a husband who couldn't parent or be a husband. And there was no shame in that. I mean, bless his heart. He didn't expect to have a mental illness. And so here I was in my young 20s, kind of had the child abuse thing I'd overcome, and then having a marriage and a mentally ill husband and overcome. Got married again and thought I was doing things pretty well. Took a ton of classes in child development, psychology. I went through and got my master's degree and really taught myself the things that I didn't know and needed to be taught when I was a child. So I came out of that stronger and better. And I was married for about 10 years, and my husband had an affair with my closest friend. And I will say, there's always this thing like, oh, he's a bad guy. But the truth is, it takes 2 to tango. And when that marriage ended, it was a big deal in our small town because we were business owners, and there were like 5 kids involved between the 2 families. And I will say, on this other side of it, they've been married for over 10 years now, and they're very happy. So I can look at that now and say, that was probably the best for them. And after that incident, I really, really dug deep and wanted to understand how to be forgiving, how to be a better person, and what was I contributing to that relationship that made it even possible for an affair to be part of our reality. So I got even better as a human, and things really started to really level up for me. I started blogging when it was basically an electronic diary, and started getting traction and started writing and speaking and doing different things. And my career was all in the fields of social work, mental health, and family court services. So I worked 22 years with thousands and thousands of families and went from the trenches all the way up into administration and leadership. So I had a really well-rounded career. And in 2008, I had been single for quite a while at that time and met somebody, and it was a very instant attraction. It was what I called the natural next step for me. He was a really, really great man. And right around the same time that we met, he was going through something totally unexpected. And I won't get into all the details of it, but short story, he was being accused by the state of a white collar crime. And at the time, the attorney general was running for governor, and he wanted to look really powerful and tough on white crime. So he indicted over 100 people in the state for various crimes. And basically what happens is they get their media sound bites, they get their pound of flesh, you settle out of court, and everybody goes on about their business. Well, my husband, we're married now, at the time we were dating, he wasn't going to do that. He's like, I didn't do anything wrong. And he had children and he had a reputation, and he really believed that right prevails. So he had his attorneys and all that. And it was about a 6-year battle. And it got so bad that they put him in jail for 2.5 years trying to force him to take a deal. And when he refused to do that, he was left to fight with a public defender. They took away his home. They took away his income. They took his businesses away, everything, just strong arming. So he went to trial. It was a very complicated experience, and he was found guilty. And when that happened, along that way, like I said, we got married, and I really, really believed in his innocence, and I believed that the right thing was going to happen. But when it didn't, everybody turned on me. My community, the media, it was a national television. It was one of my ways that I was making money was working for that courthouse. I'd worked there for 8 years as a court investigator, had never had anything except a stellar reputation, and they just fired me. Didn't even give me the opportunity to resign and preserve my reputation. So I was blackballed, hate mail. I mean, it was horrible, and I was collateral damage. So that brought me to my own end. I mean, I had 22 years of working with people who had been incarcerated or who had been, lost their kids, or lots of things that happened. And yet I came to my end because, as you were saying earlier, anybody who knew me that was still standing said, I don't know how you're going to get through this. I don't see a way out. And so I started to go within and think that suicide was going to have to be one of my available options. I mean, I was willing to work. I wanted to be, just like everybody else, accepted and have friends and get invited places. And yet I was Mrs. ARO 174. And that came with a lot of bullshit. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I understand discrimination, but I will tell you this. When I go to the prison, I am really, really, really nobody. And the things that they will do or say to me or force me to do are pretty harsh. And they could come out of nowhere and just demand that I do this, that, or the other. And so I understand that feeling of being judged and being someone wielding their power over me for no good reason and feeling like I can't say anything back. So that became my life, and it was really tough. And I had raised my husband's son for him, his last child, and I felt this real strong connection to him and this real strong desire to make sure he had the best outcome that he could possibly have. So I had to stay in that town until he got through high school. So I left town in June, moved to Sacramento, where I live now, and I've reinvented myself and have started using this as a platform for other people, because when I felt at my lowest, the reason I felt that way is I didn't know anybody who had been through this, and I didn't have access to anybody who could help me. And I do my show. I bring on people who have had their own, what I call batshit crazy crises, to tell their story, and not only to tell their story, but to make themselves available to people if someone resonates with them, and to give the very, very practical tips of what they literally did. Because as you and I know, Lynn, it's not rocket science. There isn't a special Kool-Aid that you go get when you're in crisis. It's very, very practical things that you do. Yeah. So that's my story.
And you're sticking to it.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, that's why I like with my show and with your show as well, it's so important to know that you're not alone. I think that's an important ingredient in being able to get through things, is to know. And like you had said, you didn't know anybody. There was nothing to help you. So knowing that you're not alone is one critical step, I think, in that. So making that available to people is so invaluable. It's amazing. Now, you could have left. You could have left and been done with him. Why didn't you? Why did you stay? Because as you said, when this happened, you were dating, but now you're married.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing, what I call miraculous aspects of this journey, because I've been, married and divorced more than once, and I know what it's like to leave a situation. And yet I have zero desire. It's like I say, my husband is tattooed on my heart. And I will tell you this, that when it first went down, there were so many people giving me the input that I should divorce him, I should leave. And
oh, no doubt.
That chatter really was in my ears. And I started looking at that as a possibility. And I remember even saying to him, I think that, we need to get a divorce because this is really raining havoc on me and I don't know a way out. And he loved me so much that he said, if that's what you need to do, I completely support you. And I think him saying that to me really was the reason that I turned it around and said, wow, he loves me so much that he's willing to be utterly and completely alone, because the mass exodus from him was significant. And that really made me respect him even more. And the truth is, I am a Christian. I became a Christian through knowing my husband. One of the things that is so remarkable about him is no matter how bad things got, and even as bad as they've gotten for me, I feel they were worse for him. He never lost his faith. He never cracked. And that witness for me was amazing. And because of it, there were miracles that happened. And I have little stories. And if we have time, I'll share one or two that really, really showed me that God is here. God is in it. God loves me. God loves him. And that's where I come from, that I'm here as a warrior. And there was a time when I felt condemned. And I looked at like the Old Testament Bible and thought, oh, I must be one of those people God's cursed their whole tribe, right? And I'm this remnant of some cursed tribe. And what I realize now is that God needs different people with different abilities. And I have this tenacity that God needs in his kingdom. And I have this crazy knowledge and ability to read the Bible. For someone who's only this far along in the process, I shouldn't know the things I know. I shouldn't have the heart for God that I have. So it's easy for me to stay committed to Jim, especially these last few years, because we have just dug so deep in our commitment. And a lot of people have these weddings and they do the whole 1 Corinthians, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. Well, guess what, people? That's what that line meant. Mm-hmm. And I understand it now. I couldn't understand it before because I wasn't who I am. I wasn't saved. And whatever your mentality is, this is Phaedra's mentality. Yeah. And once I made that commitment, it's like the word became alive for me. And I fully believe in what that meant.
You're so right when people say when they get married, for better, for worse. But soon as something bad happens, they're running. And it's so easy to commit to that when everything's all cheery and happy and you're looking at each other all googly eyed and say, oh yeah, I'll be there forever. But you definitely tested that, the two of you. So how long, is he going to come out soon or?
Well, this is the interesting thing. So it was really crazy. We thought all during the pre-trial and even during the trial, we thought that the judge was really sympathetic. I don't know if that's technically a word you could use, but it just felt as though he really understood kind of our stand. And he was pretty harsh, pushing it back against the state. But once a guilty verdict came, he really changed. And it was in the jury instructions that Jim really got bit hard. And because of the way that the judge delivered the instructions, his sentence ended up being 43 years. And now he's 60 years old. He was 60 years old.
Freaking God.
Yeah, for a white-collar crime. And the judge took away any good time that he could earn. He made the sentences one after the other instead of all at once. So he did everything he could to make sure it would be life in prison. And so because of the life in prison, Jim got sent to where murderers go and child molesters go and the difficult people go, even though he's just this white guy who, So he's been gone for 3.5 years. And one thing that they couldn't prevent us from, they prevented him from having real, I don't want to say real attorneys. I mean, public defenders are real attorneys, but I think we can all agree that they're not as equipped or able
invested.
So we were able to pay for the number one appeals attorney in the nation. So we've recently filed and we feel really confident that things will be made right. And the truth is, I won't know. I'm hoping 2016 is a year of change for us. And anything could happen. He could be given a retrial. He could be given, partial credits of stuff. I don't know. It could be any number of things. But whatever it is, I'm going to manage it and I'm going to deal with it because I've had the time and I've developed the skill sets that I need to be able to do that. So it's going to be what it's going to be.
Wow. Whew. That's incredible. Incredible. You said something when just earlier talking about you believe that you were chosen because of your tenacity and that we all have different roles to play. Because oftentimes you hear people, and I know some people that have kind of turned saying, maybe they're not a fan of God anymore because how could he allow these terrible things, that he's abandoned me, and why would he allow these terrible things to go on? And I think a lot of people, when they do find themselves in situations where they're brought to their knees and thinking, why? Why me? Why God?
Well, I say a couple things. I say that bad things happen to good people at the same rate that good things happen to bad people. So like you can be a horrible person and still have good things happen to you. And that in and of itself is troublesome for people looking. The other thing that I'll say is that without the pain, we would never know, appreciate, or want the good. We wouldn't love God to the extent that we should if there wasn't pain to compare it to. How would we need him? If everything was so great, we would never dig deep and get to know him because our lives would be great. So I can only speak for myself, but that's the clear answer that I've come to when I've felt pitiful and pathetic. And I look at it like this. When a lot of us watch television, some people watch Braveheart, or they'll watch, what are some of the great shows that people love? I'm at a loss. I was thinking about the one with Jonathan with Jon Snow. Yeah. Oh gosh, I can't think of it. Anyway, we watch these epic shows, right? Where there's battles and there's the warriors on the front line. And what happens is sometimes you catch shrapnel and sometimes we become weary and you have to go retreat to the hut and you've got to be nourished and your wounds tended and you've got to be made right so you can go back out and fight again. And for those with the tenacity and those with the ability to dig deeper, that I think is the benefit. That's just one level of the types of service that we can be for God, for his kingdom, and for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love the way you said that if everything was good, we wouldn't get to know him. I love that. That is such a great way because we hear that so much from people. And sometimes I'm at a loss to answer people. So I'm going to borrow your line.
You can borrow my line. And here's the other thing. So again, this is the world according to Faydra, but this is not my home. This is only a temporary place. And what I do here is temporary. And I can use it to pay it forward or to be of service or to help people know who God is through my example. But I'm going home. And in home, there is no struggle. So this is a temporary sitch. And so that helps me as well. I don't need this life to be perfect because perfect is going to come later and that's assured. And so I don't spend too much time in this comparison game. It definitely happens. I look at other people and think, how did they get away with, having no crises in their life or whatever I perceive in my head. Mm-hmm. But the truth is we're encouraged to be the best we can be here. And I think that my crisis situations have sharpened that steel and have made me somebody that people can really come to when they have their own situation. And I want to be that person that I wish had been there for me, 3.5 years ago.
Yeah. So why you? What's the difference? What do you think is the difference why, some people do crack under situations in crisis like that. And sometimes having gone through less than you have, and you didn't. So what do you think is the difference? Is it something that was always within you? Was it something that you made a decision to better yourself or to grow from it? Why you? What's the difference?
Well, I can only armchair quarterback myself. The thing that I would say is that the absence of parents, the absence of grandparents, siblings, true close friends for, all my formidable years, I never developed a crutch of leaning on other people. So being self-sustaining was typical for me. And then now, I definitely am even learning what it's like to lean on God, because I'm still that person who thinks I can make it happen. I can figure it out. I'm an acts of service for my love language as well. So I'm all about do.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's my love language too.
Yeah. So that, it's great and it's bad. I have these philosophies about the 4 buckets that people fall into when they're managing crisis. There's victor and victim, helpless and hopeless. Now, everyone thinks, oh, well, the victor's the only one that's positive, and that's not true. Every single one of those has positive aspects and negative. And you could have kind of an overlay of the different categories. And the victor is the person that's usually, you see those as first responders, police officers, firemen, social workers, hospital staff, people who are the ones who jump in when times are tough. So people like me, people with tenacity, broad shoulders, and a pretty easy, don't gag pretty easily. So they're seen as the victors. But there's a lot of problems with victors. There's alcoholism, there's not letting people in, there's stubbornness, there's difficulty. So each one of those has a good and a bad. So for Faydra, I think the reason that I have been tenacious is I've never had the ability to lay it at anyone else's feet.
Yeah, that makes sense. You had to go within and find it within yourself. Rely on yourself. And that's resourcefulness. And I think that is super, super helpful. I think that's a key to a lot of things in personal success, is when you can be resourceful. It's your resourcefulness that can determine your abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to just wait for people to come and notice me or take care of me. I'm going to go out and take care of my own shit. Yeah. And most likely I'm the person that you won't even know is quietly suffering, which is a detriment. I said, that warrior that needs to go to the hut and have the wound serviced. I have to guard myself and make sure I ask for help when I need it, which is rare. I'm kind of the best friend you could have because I'm very not needy. Yeah. And I'm an introvert by nature, which surprises people because I have a very public persona, but my true nature is very isolating, and I'm my own best friend. So I'll travel alone. I'll go out to eat alone. Like, none of that holds me back. So I have to be careful. And one of the things that I share with people that changed my game from going from suicide, because I seriously was considering that, was getting into community. And borrowing someone else's courage until I could develop my own, borrowing someone else's eyesight until mine became clear, borrowing someone else's heart until I was ready to be loving again. I had to get into community, and that was a big game changer for me.
Service. It's when you're having that tough time and you're having that crappy day and you go, what can I go do for somebody else? How can I help? How can I serve? Really changes your state of mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find that? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the first tasks that I give my clients. And it's interesting because I get different types of people applying to work with me. And sometimes I have to say no, because what they want is they want a mommy, or they want a lover, or they want, they want someone to tell them it's okay. They want someone to tell them that, gee, ain't it awful? And I call that, like, there's high functioning groups and low functioning groups. And low functioning groups just want commisery. And sometimes that, as a coach, that's what the clients want. And those are not great candidates for coaching because they're not ready to take the action. They just want to be loved on. They want to be in the hut. They want to be getting their wounds treated.
Yeah, they want you to affirm what they're going through and what they're feeling. And yes, oh yes, you should feel that way. And it's really not helpful. And we do that as women. We affirm each other. We sit in circle and, oh yes, that's terrible. Oh my God. And, maybe for, 5 minutes, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But if you stay there, it's a killer.
Yeah, you're stunting your own growth. You keep yourself in the grief and loss cycle, especially when your friends are like, well, he's a jerk. Like, we'll just use like divorce as an example. Mm-hmm. You ought to do this and he ought to do that and this and that and the other, instead of focusing on who are you, what can you control, what is in your best interest, and what should you be doing now. Mm-hmm. That is apart from how he reacts. Because we think that we need other people to react a certain way in order for us to get what we want. And we think, especially in divorce, that people need to play nice and they just need to get on board with the plan and they just need to accept. Well, guess what? You don't get to decide what they are going to do. You don't get to decide their own grief and loss cycle, but you can operate in your own best interest and they can parallel along with you however they want to. It's like that in all crisis.
Yeah, you're the one that's in the battle in your own life, and you are controlling what's going on. You're talking about, the people on the sidelines and readily giving their advice. That reminds me of a video, a TED Talk of, is it Elizabeth Gilbert or Brene Brown talking about
with the antelope and the bear?
No, where she was in the in the bull ring. And I'm just not saying this right, but basically saying until you're ready to get into the ring, don't be trying to fight my battle until you're ready to put yourself out there and get in the trenches.
Yeah, that's why we say don't shit on people.
Yeah. But people
don't tell me what they should be doing. I mean, I tell people what they should be doing because they're paying me for the consultation and I have the street cred and the degrees and the whatever, right? Yeah, pay me, pay you, go to the people that are qualified. But your friends are just going to shit on you. That's
right. So for anybody who's listening, who's really going, oh my God, like they can identify and they've gone through some stuff and they've maybe, pulled up that blanket of shame over their head and they've just retreated. What are some beginning steps that they can take to just start to feel again, get over that numbness and to start making their way back?
Awesome. So there's 3 things. I start this way with everybody. So it's universal. 3 things. The very first thing is you need to understand the grief and loss cycle. Everyone thinks that's about death, and it does include death, but it includes any type of shift, right?
Yep.
And within that, there's 5 stages. So there's shock and disbelief, there's bargaining, there's anger, depression, and acceptance. So find yourself on the cycle because it's like a roadmap. So many people come to me and they're in depression or they're pissed off and they're angry. And when I show them the cycle and where they are on it, you can see the light go on behind their eyes because they're like, oh my God, I'm in step 3. Or for example, with depression, people think depression's the beginning, right? It's not. Yeah. It's right before the end. So once they find themselves on the map, it's kind of like when I go to the mall and it's like, okay, I want to go to the Mac store. And it says, you are here and here's the Mac store. I get excited because I know exactly how far I have to walk to go get some great makeup, right? Yeah. So it's like that. So that's number 1. The second thing is you need to give yourself grace. Now, grace is the inward knowing that what you're feeling in this moment is completely appropriate, it's completely right, and if you allow yourself to feel it to its fullest extent, you will be able to get past it. So people stay in this state of, shoving down their feelings. They don't feel the sadness. They ignore the anger. They don't allow themselves to be happy. Like even in my worst of times, I saw funny shit on television. I wanted to laugh, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can feel this sense of betrayal. Who am I to laugh and eat popcorn in a movie when my husband's in prison, right? Especially in the beginning. You feel like you're betraying something. Feel whatever emotion you feel to its fullest extent. If you are enraged, go someplace appropriately and beat the shit. I understand that they have rooms, I think in another country, where they put like glass and sledgehammers and microwaves and plates, and you can destroy things.
Oh
and
my God.
Yeah, it's very cathartic, right?
Move that energy.
Yes. So to whatever is appropriate and safe, expel whatever energy you have and own it and feel it. Because once you allow yourself to feel it inwardly, you're giving yourself that grace and that permission. Now, the third thing is validation. So we touched on it a little bit here in the extreme. People languish in the place of validation, and it's because they haven't felt heard. So when I was going through this, especially in the beginning, I, again, didn't have anybody who'd ever experienced it. So I didn't really know how to feel heard. I didn't know where the end of the story, you know? Nobody could ever validate and go, Faydra, I totally know it sucks so bad. But guess what? 3 months from now, this is kind of what might happen, or this is what you could look for and you can know, or here's information about how to be a prison wife. And here's what we do. So not getting that validation kept me stuck for a very, very long time. And we were talking earlier about your friends and commiserate. There's a difference between, gee, ain't it awful? Oh my gosh, you poor thing, going on and on and on, versus practical and tactical people in your life saying, tell me everything you feel. Tell me everything you feel. Tell me everything you feel. And when you get it out of your system, you're validated. Those three things, you are ready to move on.
Nice. Totally agree. Yes. You do need to feel heard. And I think that's so much the issue for a lot of people is they don't feel heard. So they're constantly trying to find ways to feel heard. And that could be through behavior, like not great behavior.
Oh my
just
God.
wanting to be noticed and heard.
Or shopaholic, or binge eating, or no sexual function, or hypersexual function, gambling, alcoholism, drugs. I mean, we see all these outward activities that really are about validation and being heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you were a little girl, what did you dream about?
Interesting. I dreamt about being an attorney and an airline stewardess.
I dreamt about being an attorney too.
Did you? I loved it. And I loved anything that was like business. Like I wanted to make checkbooks and write receipts. And
yeah, me too. I set up a little store in our house.
Yeah. So that's what I thought about when I was a little girl.
It's interesting when I love to ask that question because I like to see if there's elements of that to now. So it's always interesting to see, I wanted to be an attorney too, an attorney or a psychologist, and I ended up being a legal assistant and then a life coach. So
yes,
it's within that realm, and it's interesting that things that go on in between those 2 points from when we were little to where we are now, and the path that we take to get there and the things that we draw upon that to get to that point, that it shows up in different ways. So I didn't end up being those things, but I sort of did in a roundabout way. So I always find that such a fascinating question.
I love your question. And I tell people this story. I used to get in a lot of trouble for talking too much when I was little. I didn't have the social skills to know how to wait. And I remember in 5th grade having a teacher make me wear a box over my head to shame me, because back then they used public humiliation as a form of managing classrooms. And now I get paid a lot of money to talk. So I just think our natural talents are put in us for a reason. And there's nature and there's nurture and there's everything in between. But I definitely know that I was always born to speak. So it is ironic that I used to get in so much trouble for it. And now it's actually how I make a living.
Oh, we're like this separated twins or something.
I know. I never knew my dad, so.
Because I used to get teased. And you remember there was a song a long time ago, because you and I are the same age. My birthday's coming up in March, and I'm going to be 47 too. I used to get teased all the time. My dad used to sing that song, You Talk Too Much. Do you remember that song?
I was so isolated. I didn't get a lot of pop culture, so I may have missed it.
Yeah, I used to get that. You talk too much. You talk too much. And And I used to get teased. Boy, you talk a lot. And yeah, and now here I am
Yep.
talking all the time and way better at that than writing. I'd love to be a writer, but I'm not. And I'm just much better at talking. So yeah, it's amazing how now the things that you got teased or admonished for, it has served you well.
Well, even the shame that was put on me, and that's a whole thing I talk about is shame on you. That is such a voodoo that I did not understand until I was walking in it. And when you know you're a good person and people are saying, no, you're a piece of shit, you're disgusting, you're staying married to this guy, that tells me a lot about you. That's what
Yeah.
I was getting. And to know in confidence that I now have a tribe of people who deliberately download my stories and the stories of so many people that I know of because they feel like they're under shame. And the thing that I know after working for 22 years in service and doing this online for the last 3 years is everybody's hiding something. And they're so determined to keep from being found out that they're living these half lives. And along comes Faydra with this batshit crazy story. And they go, well, shit, if she can do it, I can certainly talk about my gambling problem, or I can talk about my porn problem, or I can talk about whatever and move on in their lives. So who knew, right?
Mm-hmm. You must get a lot of yeah buts from people.
Oh, God, girl. Oh,
So,
that is so funny because that is a term I say, the yeah buts. Yes, absolutely.
so what's your cure for the yeah buts?
Oh, I roll my eyes. There must be magic in the eye roll. I just say, dude. I mean, technically, I hear it a lot in the beginning, but I am so good at what I do that it doesn't last very long. So it just goes with the territory, I guess.
It does. Yeah. Because that comfort of being stuck in the comfort zone and providing options, solutions, and things like that, you get the, yeah, but as if their situation is totally unique and different and doesn't even relate remotely to anything else.
I also look at it like it's an audible transition. It's actually them thinking out loud.
Yes. Absolutely. Working through it because it makes a difference, yes, when you think out loud. But you got to get off the yeah, but.
You got to stop saying it. It's seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Who or what inspires you?
My friends. I mean, you inspire me. I'm starting to have guests now that I wouldn't call my friends because I didn't necessarily know them a whole lot outside of it. But my friends inspire me because they love me. And when I was feeling so rejected, they're like, girl, seriously, like, stop. You know what I mean? Like, they're even kind of that point. It's like, your story's getting tired. So they inspire me because I really want to be able to love everyone. And I see people who have gone through way worse things than I have. I mean, my story's crazy, but I haven't had to bury a child. I haven't had to nurse someone back to health who had been, assaulted or beaten. So there are far worse things than what I'm going through. And I say it's not a contest, but my guests are the people in this space and time that are really inspiring me.
Mm-hmm. So what would you suggest when you had talked about, find your place on the spectrum of where you are in the journey, whether it's depression or anger, and they've kind of come to that acceptance. They've gone through that range and they've come to the acceptance and they're a little bit more hopeful and they've decided that I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to, I want to live life again. What is the next thing that someone can do?
Well, this is the cool thing. So I show the level of acceptance. It's kind of like when you're in the shower and all of a sudden you get the answer to a question you've had for a really long time. It's that kind of thing. So acceptance is when the depression just prior to the acceptance is when you're giving up the fight. So if we go back to the cycle, the anger is when you're really, really pissed off. And then the depression is when you've tried everything, you've bargained, you've tried to force it, you've tried to make it happen, and you realize that it's not happening, that all your best efforts are not working. And that's causing the depression. That depression is when you lay it all down. And once you lay it all down and you admit that you don't have the answers, that's when the acceptance comes. It's not like acceptance like, oh, my life is just shit and it's never going to get better, so I just acquiesce. That's different. That's still anger and depression.
Yeah.
But when you truly say, you know what, I don't know. I give up. Whatever. That's when the teacher comes. That's when the offer comes. That's when seeing something in a way you never ever saw it before comes. So that's what gives the hope. That's what turns the light on. And then it's up to you to walk towards it and to not be so scarred and so battered and a belly so full of shrapnel that you won't walk towards it.
Mm-hmm. Do you suggest to your clients a lot to journal? Is that one of the things that you encourage them to do?
I suggest that they do whatever it is that they do, because not everybody is a wordsmith. Not everybody cares. Some people need to go out and they need to get their heart rate up and get their serotonin busting through their brain. So I might encourage, I assess who you are as a person. Do you need to go out and hike? Do you need to journal? Do you need to listen to audio tapes? Do you need to go swim? It's really personal to you and what you're all about. And for some people, they need to try something they've never, ever done. But some people are very like, no, I know my sweet spot is X. So I have them do that.
Nice. So you really personalize. You really get in there and nice. We're running out of time, Faydra.
Damn it.
I could just talk on and on and on. Okay, so I want to know, what could you not live without? Starbucks, for one.
Yes, a skinny vanilla latte, iced skinny vanilla latte with coconut milk once a day. And everyone, I just recently, I know you saw this on my Facebook, I got some hate about it. Well, it must be nice. Do you know how much, money you spend in a month? And it's like, listen, I have raised 3 self-sufficient, amazing, beautiful children. What I used to spend in tampons alone once a month more than pays for my Starbucks now.
No doubt. Good comeback.
Yeah. It's like, you don't get to put your judgment on me. I raised my kids. They're self-sufficient. I'm making my own money, doing my own thing, and I choose Starbucks. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I could live without it. Let's be honest. But I choose not to.
Yeah. And that's the key word. You choose not to. It's amazing what you can get hate mail on.
Oh,
that's some mindset shit going on there.
Oh, that's nothing worse. I used to get death threats, so I'm cool with the Starbucks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I want to talk about this before we wrap up too, is your podcast coming out of the fire. Let us know what's coming up, and maybe a story or something that we can take it away.
Sure. So here's the cool thing about my podcast. It's really interesting to see all the different personality forms that Faydra has, because I've noticed some patterns. So when I have somebody on there that's, rocking in the arms of Jesus, I tend to meet them where they are, and we get really deep in that. And I just had David Pritchard on, his show released this week, and he was from Team Justice. And he got really internet famous, I guess you'd say Facebook famous, because his grandson suffered from encephalitis, which is swelling of the brain. And it looked like he was going to die. And he took to Facebook just to process his anguish and his anger and his questions with God. And it was so fascinating and so amazing. And his grandson did live, and he is in the rehab process. He's not 100%, but he's not where he was. And when I talk with him, it just brings out all the warm fuzzies about how much I love God and how much that's happened. But then again, I have my friend Christopher Rausch or my friend Manny Wolf, and they come from the trenches where I was from. And so, they're dropping an F-bomb, different things are happening. And I feel completely, hood and at home with them. And so I love that I can meet my guests wherever they are. And that, I think, is spicy. It's fun. I think that people resonate with different people and different lifestyles. So I love that element of it. I love that the issues are higher end. Even, lots of people experience divorce, lots of people experience job loss, but I've had people on who've been in plane crashes, people who've born in cults, people like you and I we have so many parallels. Our physical injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
there's something for everybody. And the thing is, you might not be experiencing the same exact crisis, but the range of human emotion is the same.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
that's what sets it apart. And again, like I said, those really practical tips, like telling someone to journal, please, right? It's like, okay, dude, seriously. So here's what I literally did. I went to the store, faced people who were, whispering behind my back, and I bought myself everything to make chicken fettuccine. Like it was that literal, right? And that good meal with that glass of wine, I decided I was going to make a change that night. And hearing those kind of practical tips, people go, "Oh, I can make chicken fettuccine," and then I can do that. Yeah. So that's what I'm loving about my show. And it is available at my website, doinglifewithfaydra.com, podcast tab. You can download it on Stitcher, iTunes, all the traditional things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great shows because, doesn't matter where we are, like you said, we go through the same range of emotions. We are still needing the same things. We are all connected. We are all connected. We are all one that way. And so I love that that's such a fantastic resource that people can listen and grab something some little thing that will hit them and give them that pivotal shift, that pivotal moment that they can look back on and remember, like where I was when I heard that and then I thought this, and it just makes all the difference. And that's what's so great about sharing stories. Stories is what connects us, makes us feel like we're not alone. So that's such a great resource that you have for people on top of your coaching, but that is something that is simple to do. People can just go and listen.
You can be broke as a joke and you can listen to podcasts, and podcasts are what got me through my lowest time. There were certain people who released podcasts fairly frequently, and thank God, because I filled my head with that information instead of the bullshit that was running around. So that's one of the reasons that I release a few times a week, and I released with a whole catalog so people could binge, kind of like the Netflix of iTunes, You can just consume the information. But thank you so much for your high praise. It means a lot to me. And I love our friendship. I love our similarities, and I love your strengths that complement my weaknesses, because I can count on you for things, and I know you can count on me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I just think it's something that's so needed. There just seems to, sometimes you could look at the world and go, God, what is happening? What is happening with these shootings? And it just, sometimes you could get caught up in that, oh my God, I think the world's going crazy and what's going to happen? And you can get a little freaked out. And so what you do is just so important. We see these parents of shooters and what they go through and how they must feel. And crisis is very prevalent. And you're the lifeline for people.
Oh, thank you. I accept that. I accept, what is it that they say? I'll be the tribute. Shoot, I just totally butchered that. But yeah, I'm willing. And people say, what's the difference? Like, why is all this for you? It's the bottom line is I'm just willing. I'm willing to be that person. My life is already what it is, and my reputation got to where it was. So hey, why not? I'll just be the poster child for batshit crazy crisis.
Yeah, batshit crazy crisis. That flows well off the tongue.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
I've had people who didn't want to be on my show because they said, I don't want to be seen as batshit crazy. I'm like, hey, then you don't want to be on my show, because I don't think the people are batshit crazy. The crisis is crazy. And the fact that you're willing to talk about it is what makes you awesome.
Yeah.
That's what makes you a badass. And the people who say, well, I don't want to be seen as cray cray. It's like, okay, you don't get me. You don't get the show. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Any last words, any message, any inspiration, hope to somebody who's listening, maybe who's finding themselves that they have been thinking that, it'd just be better if I wasn't here, or what am I going to do now?
I know this is going to sound crazy, but there was some empowerment in knowing that suicide was one of my options. It meant that I had more than one, and it meant that I had a fallback should I get to a place where I felt all hope was lost. So if you're listening and you have it on the table as one of the options, I would say to you that there is somebody somewhere who is willing to let you say that, because a lot of people are afraid to talk about their thoughts and their feelings around self-harm or around feeling like it's not worth it. And there are people who can help you. And there are national hotlines. You can reach myself. You can reach Lynn. I do have a freebie that I give away. It's at crisiscrusher.com. And it talks about this grief and loss cycle. It has some downloads. It's got videos. It's got really great information for you if you're in a crisis right now, or if you want to fortify yourself for when you or someone you love ends up in crisis. So I would encourage you to go there, crisiscrusher.com, and get to know me better and know that Lynn has access to her. She is a phenomenal coach. If you're already listening to her show, she's your leader. She's who you should be reaching out to you. If she doesn't have an answer, she's got people like me in her life that she can come to and say, what do I say to this person? And we'll tag team it. But you are never, ever going to be alone.
That's right. Great. I love that. That's true. And that is one of the great benefits of having a live radio show or podcast is we connect with so many amazing people that if we don't have the answer, you guaranteed we know somebody who does.
Yep. And we use our celebrity. If I were to call Lynn and say, hey, there's this person, I need you to talk to them. Me being that gatekeeper, she's going to say yes because I've already screened them and vetted them versus some, cray-cray person going, hey, I like your sweater. You gotta have that buffer. So that's the benefit of having people to introduce you and be the gatekeeper.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have one last sort of question thing. I'd like you to finish this sentence for me before we wrap up. Ready?
I'm going to do my best. I'm scared.
Okay. You can handle it.
I'm scared.
Finish this sentence. Faydra Koenig is
an eradicator of shame.
Oh, powerful. Love that.
Boom. Drops mic, walks away.
Yeah. Perfect way to end. You rock, girl.
Oh, likewise, my love.
You're awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. This hour has flown. Oh, I could keep talking. I wish we lived closer so we could go for coffee and dinner and
I'll come visit you. I'm an empty nester.
Cool. Thank you, darling. I appreciate it. And for everybody listening, crisiscrusher.com for that freebie. Go there. If you're finding yourself lost, alone, retreated from life, go there. And also go to, she has so many websites. They'll all connect and hook up. Doinglifewithfaydra.com. Go listen to her podcast. Go to iTunes, search it out, download all the shows, binge listen. You'll get something you need guaranteed. So be sure to do that and listen to her Coming Out of the Fire podcast and get to know her more because you've heard she's fun, she's open, and she's here to help, and she's a warrior, and she can help you be a warrior too. So don't sit back and be all consumed by the grief and the feelings. There's somebody to help you. So, Faydra, I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too.
I appreciate you, and so glad we're connected. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I know I get something out of every show, and I know that you did too. So please just reach out when you're ready to do so because there's people all around waiting to help. And until next time, remember, you have the power within you. Bye for now.